The winner of the Korchnoi Zürich Chess Challenge 2017 is Hikaru Nakamura. This is the third year in a row that he's won the tournament, an incredibly impressive achievement. Of course, he also won the Gibraltar tournament this year for the third time. So he's having a good run at the moment, is Hikaru. At the end of the classical section of this tournament, Hikaru was joint leader with Jan Nepomniachtchi, but it was in the blitz that Hikaru eased ahead and he won by a clear point in the end and never looked in any trouble at all in the blitz section. His technique, not just in the longer time control of 45 minutes, but also in blitz, was quite noteworthy. He didn't panic at any stage, it seemed to me. He kept control extremely well, and what I think Hikaru is excellent at is maintaining the tension in a position, keeping just enough juice in there to give some winning chances, but also at the same time to play reasonably quickly, but soundly at the same time. So I think this game, from round 6 of the longer time control, 45 minutes on the clock plus 30 seconds, this is the round 6 game against Boris Gelfand, and you can see the position on the board is, well, it looks very dry. But earlier, Hikaru had allowed one of his bishops to be exchanged off for a knight, so Boris has supposedly the advantage of a bishop against a knight in this endgame, with pawns on both sides. But Hikaru had allowed this on purpose because actually he realizes that that imbalance in the position just gives him a few chances. Of course the position is equal, but Hikaru has just declined to repeat the position, so it's obvious he wants to play for a win. Further simplifications. Position is still equal, but now things start to happen. So Gelfand can make no more progress on the queen side. He just came back with his king, so one could anticipate here a draw, but Hikaru just steadily improves his pawn position on the king side. This kind of gain of space for the pawns is such an important technique. Of course, you have to appreciate when to do it, whether you have time to do it in a position, but this is perfect. It's a very simple thing that if you bring your pawns closer to the queening square, then you never know, some tactic might turn up, and by this stage Hikaru had a clear advantage on the clock, and Boris was down to his final few minutes, so not absolutely desperate time pressure, and remember they get 30 seconds added each move, but enough pressure that things started to happen. So the bishop moved, well, it's just a waiting move, and this knight spins round. You never know where this might go, and here's a crunch moment for white. Already there's a little bit of pressure, so for example if that bishop retreats, then this king and pawn endgame is winning. Now this is what I mean by funny tactics that suddenly crop up when you have your pawns closer to the queening square. This is simply a winning position. So for example after this, takes, pawn takes, well obviously if the pawn takes then the pawn rolls home, and if the king comes over then this is a very well-known position where eventually white will fall into Zugzwang. The king will have to move and then the pawn rolls home. So coming back to this position, what should white play? Well, you know, you could wait with f3. Possible, but I can understand why Boris didn't want to do that, sort of cutting off the bishop's retreat. It looks a bit funny. And also, you know, there may be some weaknesses in white's pawn structure on the king side. Boris played f4, which kind of positionally makes more sense, you could say. You know, it's not on the same colour as the bishop. However, that allows the pawn to come forward. actually this position is still fine for white. If white hangs around with the king, in fact, it doesn't seem there's much that black can do, but one never knows. But Boris played king d4, which seems incredibly sensible. But here, in the middle of a position which seems as though white cannot lose, Hikaru spotted a mean trick. And here's the trick. b5. Incredibly, white is really stuck in this position. There's a very simple threat. To play knight b6, trapping the bishop in the corner. And you can see how the bishop's retreat on this diagonal is simply impossible. All those squares have been covered. So what did Boris do? Well, it's a tough one. If you play e4, then, for example, here, this might look as though the bishop is going to escape, or these pawns look menacing. In fact, this position is a very simple win for black with the extra piece. So Boris exchanged on g4, which allows the bishop to retreat, but suddenly this overlap on the side of the board. It reminds me of a game of rugby, actually, where the ball is passed to the wing and you have the winger steams through to score in the corner. Yeah, there you go. Big shout out to the rugby fans out there. The rest of you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but anyway. So, knight f6, the bishop has to move. And now g3, and again, it looks like we're heading for a touchdown because, there you go, I've switched games. The pawn coming to h3. So the bishop has to retreat miserably to f1 and then knight g4, and here Boris resigned. Simple threat to push the bishop and then play h3. So the king retreats, but the black king comes forward. If king e2, then for example e5, and this is just completely lost. There's nothing doing here. Well, yeah, now it's Zugzwang actually. So here, and well, the pawn is rolling home. Or let's say e4, knight here, king back, and then the king just marches in. And that's a winning king and pawn endgame. So very patient chess from Nakamura, and just maintaining the tension, and then when Boris made a tactical error, then suddenly out of the blue, Hikaru wins. Let me just show you one more little game. This is from the Blitz tournament, and is the conclusion of his game against Vladimir Kramnik. Well, here Hikaru did brilliantly to outplay Kramnik in an endgame and has the extra knight, but you still have to finish this one off. Let's see how he did it. So he's closing in on the king. Threat to play knight f6 and rook g8. King goes back. Now take care because there are funny stalemates happening. Let's see what happened. Threat of mate, rook check, and knight f6. Now you can see that black's king has no moves in this position. So here's where the stalemate tricks start to occur. Of course, if the rook goes back, then I dare say that is going to be a winning move. Unless there's a stalemate trick, I don't see it. That looks like mate next move. So rook c6 forced. Of course, if that's taken, it's stalemate. So here's where the fun games start. Rook d4, threatening mate again. The rook nudges across, again, can't be taken. But here, Hikaru's next move puts black into Zugzwang. He played rook d5, a wonderful move. If it's white to play, then white still can't make progress. But with black to play, whatever black plays is losing. So if the rook moves to the side, then it's mate. If the rook exchanges, then of course this is a simple win. So Kramnik played at rook d7, a last little joke. Of course, if rook takes, then it's stalemate. But knight takes rook. Wins the game as black's king is now free to move to g8. So in the end, a convincing win for Hikaru Nakamura. In the Korchnoi Zürich Chess Challenge, a really enjoyable event, and I hope that you've enjoyed the chess that was played here. Somehow the players were really up for fighting chess, and I think the time control did contribute to that. It was just slightly quicker in the classical phase, only 45 minutes plus 30 seconds, and I think it's an excellent introduction to the chess scene, and I do hope that these kind of tournaments actually grow, because I think they're very entertaining to watch.